Good morning everyone, my name is Michelle, I hope you're doing well. Welcome to another video. It is Wednesday morning and yes, today is definitely Wednesday. Yesterday in my video I said that it was definitely Wednesday and many of you told me that no Michelle, in fact it was Tuesday. So Tuesday yesterday, definitely Wednesday today. Oh dear me. In this video we're going to talk about the British serial killer, the evil nurse Lucy Letby, who's had a lot of media and social media attention over the last week because last Friday she was finally convicted of the murders of 7 little babies and the attempted murder of 6 others. After a trial that started on the 10th of October of last year, this is one of the longest running trials that I'm aware of. I can't think of another trial that went on so long. The trial itself lasted for almost 9 months. And then the jury deliberated for 110.5 hours. So last Friday, finally, the families who have been sitting diligently and patiently through the horrendous details of this trial received justice. Sadly, not all the families involved in this case received justice. The jury were unable to decide on a number of other cases. But this Monday, just gone, I'm recording this Wednesday, just 2 days ago, Lucy Letby was sentenced. She becomes a member of that rogues gallery of the few people convicted of murder in the UK who receive whole life orders. So she is in prison with no possibility of parole. She also joins the rogues gallery of British medical professionals who have murdered patients in their care. I'm going to talk a little bit about the nurse Beverly Allitt, who in a killing spree over 59 days in 1991 murdered children in her care. A lot of comparisons have been drawn between Beverly Allitt's case and that of Lucy Letby, so I think Beverly's an important person to talk about when we delve into Lucy Letby's psychology. But also that rogues gallery contains Dr. Harold Shipman, the British general practitioner convicted in 2000 of 15 murders, but suspected of as many as 250. Now I've got videos on both Beverly Allitt. She was episode 3 in my Crime Story Sunday series, so the clips I'm going to play in this video are actually from my own video. I've also got a video on Harold Shipman, so if you want to go and check that out as well. But we've got more. We've got Barbara Salisbury, the British nurse convicted in 2004 of attempting to murder patients to free up beds in a chronically understaffed ward. Now, she didn't actually murder anyone, but she was found guilty of attempted murder. We've also got Benjamin Geen, the British nurse convicted in 2006 of murdering 2 patients, and Colin Norris, the British nurse convicted of murdering 4 patients with injections of insulin in 2008. And injecting insulin into little babies' bodies was one of the things that Lucy Letby did, but it wasn't the only thing that Lucy Letby did. She was incredibly conniving, manipulative, and that's why she was very difficult to catch. So in this video we're going to talk about the psychology of Lucy Letby. What do we know about her psychology? What can we glean from other cases? As far as I know, she doesn't have a mental health diagnosis apart from anxiety and depression. Now, there's thousands of people out there with anxiety and depressive illnesses, and they don't go on to murder anybody. So just saying she's got this mental health issue doesn't, in itself, serve us very well in trying to understand Lucy Letby's psychology. So drawing on other cases, I think, is important in this instance. So, without further ado, let's get into the horrendous case of serial killer nurse Lucy Letby. Lucy Letby was born on the 4th of January 1990 as the only child of a finance manager and an accounts clerk. She grew up in the town of Hereford in the Midlands. It's almost on the Welsh border. According to a childhood friend, she was a studious girl. She wanted to be a nurse, but she also wanted to work with children. So really, she was in her dream job. She had a whole life ahead of her. It just begs the question, why? Why did she do this? She pursued her education in nursing at the University of Chester in Cheshire, where she worked as a student nurse during her 3 years of training. And nursing training in the UK is pretty intensive. I used to work at a university and the psychology department. I'm a psychologist, for those who don't know. I got my PhD in 2002, so you could call me an expert if you want to in this video, although I don't bill myself as an expert on YouTube. I'm here as just me. I worked in psychology for well over 20 years. And when I worked at university, the nursing people were on the 3rd floor. I was 2nd floor, they were 3rd floor. I knew some of the nursing lecturers. I know how intensive nursing training is. And Lucy seemed to pass with flying colours. She carried out placements at Liverpool Women's Hospital and the Countess of Chester Hospital, where eventually she bagged a permanent job and where the murders occurred. She graduated in 2011. So she began working as a registered nurse at the neonatal unit of Countess of Chester Hospital in 2012. And to work as a neonatal nurse, you have to have special training because you are responsible for probably some of our most vulnerable members of society, babies who are often desperately ill or babies who have been born prematurely and just require round-the-clock care to keep them alive until their little bodies are strong enough to survive on their own. In a 2013 staff profile, she said she was responsible for caring for a wide range of babies requiring various levels of support, and that she enjoyed seeing them progress and supporting their families. Now, Lucy's murdering spree went on for 13 months in 2015 and 2016. It was at some point, June 2015, when a consultant revealed troubling details regarding 4 unexplained collapses that occurred on the neonatal unit. 3 of these cases resulted in deaths, and one of them in a desperately ill baby, but who eventually recovered. And it was observed that Letby had been on shift at each of these occasions. So although a consultant kind of raised the red flag, nothing was done immediately. It was deemed that there was maybe a number of errors that had occurred in these babies' care, and a committee classified them as medication errors rather than recognising them as unexplained deaths that were potentially murders. In October 2015, a ward manager conducted her own review, noting that Letby was the only staff member consistently present throughout these incidents. These findings were relayed to the lead consultant on the ward, and further concerns were voiced by management, but concerns were either dismissed or just brushed under the rug. Then in February 2016, the lead consultant, along with other medics, concluded a thorough review investigating 5 unexplained deaths and collapses within the unit. And they determined that the only common factor in these cases was the presence of nurse Lucy Letby. This led to, in June 2016, Lucy Letby be removed from the unit, while the investigation into a whole range now of unexplained deaths and collapses in the neonatal patients, all, it seemed, when Lucy Letby was on shift. She was given an administrative position which she didn't like while the investigation continued. Now, it was 2 years later, in July 2018, when she was finally arrested by police on suspicion of 8 counts of murder and 6 counts of attempted murder. But she was bailed on the 6th of July 2018 as police continued their inquiries. She was rearrested on the 10th of June 2019 in connection with the 8 murders and a further 3 counts of attempted murder. And then again on the 10th of November 2020, where she was charged with 8 counts of murder and 10 counts of attempted murder. And this time she was denied bail and she was remanded into police custody. Ultimately, at her trial, she was charged with 22 counts. And as I said in the introduction, the jury found her guilty of 7 counts of murder and 6 counts of attempted murder. The others, they couldn't decide. They couldn't determine whether those cases were murder or whether those babies sadly would have died or become seriously ill otherwise. But what I want to get into for the rest of this video is her motive. Why did she do this? When cases like this occur, you know, a nurse, a young nurse, she was only 28 when she was arrested. So she was like 25, 26 when she was carrying out these murders. She looks like just anybody else. She had an active social life. She had friends. Her parents doted on her. They can't believe that she would do this. There's no warning signs. And this is the thing which has confused me, if I put my psychologist hat on. And it's also confused other psychologists as well. Quite a number of psychologists have been interviewed by various media outlets, and everybody seems confused on what exactly Lucy Letby's motive was. The police said that they don't know what her motive was, and one police officer said that it was incredibly difficult to talk to these families about why Lucy did what she did to their precious little babies. They could tell them how these babies were murdered, but not why. So even the families that have received justice this week, they're still left with lots of unanswered questions as to why. We all have a desire to know why these horrific events occur. Gladly, they don't occur very often, but when they do, they really stand out. And we want answers. We want to know why. And in Lucy's case, her psychology does not point to that of a serial killer. But yet she is a serial killer. So what on earth went wrong in Lucy's life? And it's maybe going to be a question that we're going to carry on asking until maybe one day Lucy tells us. She pled not guilty. She said she didn't do this. And maybe one day she'll come clean and tell us why she did this. But at the moment, we're left guessing and applying what we know from other cases in an attempt to understand the why. Now, Dr. Soam Das was interviewed by Sky News, and who is a consultant forensic psychiatrist who works in prisons and secure hospitals such as Broadmoor. Dr. Das said that Lucy does not fit any typical killer profile. Having assessed several women who kill babies, usually mothers, he says that most are driven by psychotic beliefs, delusional beliefs that they believe the children are marked by the devil and they're somehow saving them from hell or damnation. Now, Lucy Letby certainly doesn't fit that kind of category. But as I said in the intro, the case that Lucy Letby's has been compared with is that of the Angel of Death, Beverly Allitt. And here I'm going to play you a clip from my Crime Stories Sunday series when I did Beverly Allitt. And this is talking about Beverly Allitt's early life. And there were so many red flags early in Beverly's life, just aren't apparent in Lucy's life. As far as we know, Beverly and Lucy can't be compared as the same kind of person, having the same kinds of personality traits, which ultimately might have led both of them to commit eerily similar crimes. So listen to what I said back then. Her dream job when she left school was to become a children's nurse. So she took a nursing course at nearby Grantham College. She struggled though, because she wasn't academically gifted, but also she missed a lot of classes. You know, this was just compounded by the fact that she was sick all the time, or at least claimed to be sick all the time. She eventually, after, you know, failing some classes, but eventually she passed, and she went on the hunt for her dream job, that of a children's nurse. Now, she was turned down for various posts initially because of her lack of experience. You know, she was fresh out of college, but she was a trainee state enrolled nurse. In December 1990, she was fortunate to land a 6-month contract on Ward 4, which is one of the children's ward in the busy but chronically understaffed Grantham Hospital as a trainee. Beverly was disturbed, and it was noted in her medical records when her case went to trial that it was suspected that she had Munchausen syndrome. She loved the attention of being ill. It was deemed once her murders were discovered, and she incidentally murdered 4 babies and attempted to kill others in Grantham in Lincolnshire in 1991, that perhaps Beverly did this because she loved the attention, and she'd extended her own Munchausen syndrome to that of Munchausen syndrome by proxy. When someone fakes illnesses in other people because they like to be connected to the process, they're also seen as a victim. They're given empathy and sympathy. But Lucy Letby doesn't seem to fit that profile, really. There's no signs that she had Munchausen syndrome in herself. She was a studious person, unlike Beverly Allitt, who only barely passed her exams and who had so much time off that she nearly didn't qualify as a nurse at all. The backgrounds of Beverly and Lucy are very different, but did they have the same characteristics? I would argue perhaps not. Now, a theory that was put forward by the prosecution during her trial, that she was sabotaging the care of these babies to get the attention of a doctor that she had a crush on. So bringing in this attention-seeking behaviour in a different way to that of Beverly, but she was seeking sympathy and empathy from this doctor that she'd struck up a friendship with. Now, neither the doctor, who hasn't been named in the media for legal reasons, and Lucy both agree that they were friends, but they've both denied that they were having an affair, this doctor being a married man. But I'm not sure about that either. I think it's a stretch to say that she did all of these murders, like all of them, because of needing to seek attention from this doctor that she had a crush on, because they were already friends. Now, maybe in one case she got the attention from that doctor. I'm not sure that we have the evidence that this was the sole reason that Lucy carried on a 13-month murder spree. And Beatrice Yorker, a professor of nursing and criminal justice at California State University in Los Angeles, said that it doesn't appear that Lucy was seeking attention either from parents and other nurses or of this doctor specifically. And she's quoted as saying, "I haven't read anything about Lucy Letby that indicates she wanted to be the centre of attention, that she enjoyed resuscitation of the infants. She seemed much more clandestine and deceitful, kind of sadistic, maybe." And certainly the judge, Justice Goss, who sentenced Lucy, used the term sadist in his summary of her horrific crimes. And she was sadistic. She was. And I think sadism characterises one of the motives for her killing, that she enjoyed the killing. It wasn't necessarily that she was seeking attention for it. She wasn't doing it for that reason. She was doing it because she enjoyed killing. She enjoyed the position of power that she had over these infants and their families. She was playing God, that she decided who lived and who died. And Professor Yorker, who has studied more than 130 cases of health professionals who kill, that's globally, said one motive, if not attention, seemed to be an act of covert violence or sadism, because they crave the power that being in that position of playing God gives them. Quote here from Professor Yorker: they realise that you don't have to bludgeon somebody, you don't have to shoot somebody. It's a very powerful way to kill somebody, just to give them a few extra drops of a substance that can make their heart stop. And you don't even have to prick them with a needle. You inject it into their IV line. That's a lot of power for people who might have a propensity to kill or injure people, to be violent in a very, very covert way. Another covert killer medic was Dr. Harold Shipman from Manchester in the UK. And he's probably the UK's most notorious, certainly one of the most notorious, and maybe the most prolific serial killer, who was convicted in 2000 of murdering 15 people between 1995 and 1998. But he potentially killed up to 250, starting his killing spree perhaps in 1975. We'll never know what motivated Harold Shipman, because he took his own life while he was in prison. And Dr. Das, who we heard from earlier, said that Shipman had a God complex. It was like he was deciding whether to let people live or die, but almost like mercy killings. I've always thought that Dr. Shipman was a deeply disturbed individual who was trying to relive his mother's death. His mother died when he was a teenager of lung cancer. It was the reason, actually, why he went on to study medicine, that he was grateful for the doctors who would come in and inject morphine as a painkiller into his mother's body. And he was with his mother when she died. I think it's some kind of out-of-control mercy, but in like a compulsive way to relive his mother's death that traumatised him so much in his adolescence. But Dr. Das said that Lucy Letby's murders don't appear to be the same as that of Harold Shipman, that it wasn't mercy. She wasn't killing these babies because she thought she was putting them out of their misery. Because we know that once she targeted a particular individual, and if she was thwarted at the first attempt, she'd go back, and she'd keep going back. Now, Beverly Allick did the same, that she sometimes had several tries at killing someone. So in that way, Lucy's killings are more similar to that of Allick than of Shipman. These weren't mercy killings. I think, though, she was playing God in another kind of way, in a sadistic kind of way, to say, I decide who lives and who dies, and having that power over that little baby, that defenceless little baby, but also over their families. We can support this by Lucy's Facebook searches, where at key points on the calendar, such as Christmas or at an anniversary of one of the baby's deaths, she'd go back and look at the family's profile to see what they were saying, and perhaps reliving and reveling in their grief. You know, she wanted them to grieve. She wanted to know that she'd caused that grief. Dr. Das said that at a stretch, you could say that she was jealous of these happy families, that somehow she's connected to their emotional process of grieving. You know, she was present when most of these babies died. But I don't think that is an answer in itself, that she was jealous of them. I think it was that she enjoyed the power over them, and she decided that she wanted to be responsible for that grief. And once you've stepped over that line of the first murder, that buzz that it might have given her becomes addictive, becomes a compulsion. Now, many have speculated as to whether Lucy Letby is a psychopath. And some have said that the fact that she professed her innocence, pled not guilty, and has always denied that she did this is a sign of psychopathic traits. You know, that she could have pled guilty and not put their parents through this terrible trauma. She could have spared it. I don't think that's enough evidence to say that she's a psychopath, although it's true. I don't think that's enough evidence. But certainly, psychopaths like power, they like control, and they lack empathy, and they're completely self-obsessed. So in that way, I think she probably does fit into the realm of psychopathy. So psychopathic, but not psychotic. Don't confuse those two terms. She understood exactly what she was doing. And Dr. Ramsland, an expert in serial killers from Washington State University. You might have heard of Ramsland's name if you've studied Brian Koberger and the Idaho 4 case, because Dr. Ramsland was one of Brian Koberger's teachers, lecturers. And Ramsland said of Lucy Letby, she doesn't seem psychotic, so she would likely have sense of her own behaviour and the way society evaluates it. Whether she would feel remorse is a different question. I don't think she did feel remorse. Now, a lot has been said about this so-called confession. Well, the prosecution called it confession. That was written on a post-it note inside a diary. And the prosecutor said that she left that on purpose for them to find it. And I'm not sure she did. If it's a confession, it's a strange one, because it starts off by saying that she didn't do it, and then saying that she's an evil person and she did do it. And while the note does suggest that she's admitting to the crimes, her denials in court show otherwise. And Dr. Das said that on some level, a part of her does actually feel remorse. That people can commit horrible crimes and feel guilty. And in fact, serial killers, especially disorganized serial killers, often battle with this internal kind of conflict. So they feel compelled to go out and kill, but they also feel guilty at their actions as well. I don't know whether that's Lucy. She was very organised. And I'm wondering whether this so-called confession letter is an outpouring of her own misery, but not of guilt. The fact that she says, I feel very alone and scared. What does the future hold? And I'll never have a family. It's all about her. It's all about her. This note was entitled Not Good Enough. That she feels not good enough in life. And maybe because she doesn't feel good enough, she's turned that psychological disturbance onto others. And she's making herself feel good and powerful by reveling in the misery of others so that she doesn't have to live in her own misery. She's creating this mirror where the people that she's looking at, the people that she's stalking on Facebook, are more miserable than she is. And that, in turn, makes her feel good. So I don't think this is necessarily a confession, but nor do I think it's an admission of guilt. I don't think it is. I think it's her reveling in her own misery, and perhaps at some level knowing that she's going to get caught. So I think she does have some psychopathic traits. I don't think she's remorseful. I don't think she feels guilty for what she's done. Now, obviously, this is just my opinion. But psychopathy, being a psychopath, isn't a diagnosis. The actual diagnosis that I think she most likely fits is that of narcissistic personality disorder. Now, I don't know Lucy. I've never met Lucy. I've never spoken to Lucy or anyone connected with the case. This is just my opinion. I can't diagnose someone I've never met or spoken to. But the symptoms of narcissistic personality disorder do kind of contain, they interweave psychopathic traits as well. And narcissistic personality disorder is a mental health condition in which people have an unreasonably high sense of their own importance. They need and seek attention and want people to admire them. Now, that might seem contrary to what I've said earlier on, but stay with it. People with this disorder may lack the ability to understand or care about the feelings of others, but behind this mask of extreme confidence on the outside, they are not sure of their own self-worth and are easily upset by the slightest criticism. And people with narcissistic personality disorder are generally unhappy with their own lives, but it's a confident mask. And actually, deep down, They feel very, very insecure, and they don't feel good enough. And that's what that note said. That's what that note was entitled, not good enough. This outward need to seek power, to create a mirror, to look at other people who are more devastated, more miserable than she is, I think is a sign of covert narcissism. So although she didn't do it for attention, she's doing it to create a mirror, because deep down, under this mask, she feels deeply insecure. But on the face of it, she's confident, she's sociable, but she's dying inside. And that's not an excuse, and that's not to feel sorry for her at all. Right? What I'm attempting to do is understand why she felt the need to do this. And people with narcissism, they are so kind of on the edge of potential violence when they're criticised or when they feel that they're being judged. They might become impatient and angry when they don't receive the recognition that outwardly they think they deserve, but inwardly they know they don't deserve. They might have rage and contempt and try to belittle other people to make themselves appear superior. And one of the family members said that Lucy had told them when their baby was desperately ill, "Trust me, I'm a nurse. Trust me, I'm a nurse." So she's putting herself in a position of power above them. And this kind of difficulty in managing her emotions and the fact that her behaviour became a compulsion. She became addicted to feeling good. Another family being her mirror into her own psyche. And the enjoyment that she would have had feeling good for a time at least. She's able to put her own feelings of insecurity aside and gloat in the distress and the devastation of others. So that's my assessment. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll see you very soon in the next video. Bye guys.